is up? I'm Rick, the Fat Man GM. You may or may have not have heard of me babbling and rambling on a few of the YouTube channels and Facebook channels regarding to our hobby, role-playing games in general, tabletop games, wargaming, so on, etc. I have started back when I was in my early teens. I have well over 40 years worth of experience in this hobby that we love and share. And a big part of what I like to do is go back and revisit a lot of the stuff that I have and have accumulated in my gaming career, if you will. And everything from MERP, Starfleet, from FASA, a slew of Dungeons and Dragons and Shadowrun, Star Wars, etc., etc., etc. And I revisit these items individually, and hopefully to give some nostalgia for myself, to give you a little bit of an insight into some game system that you may or may not have heard of or may have not had the opportunity to play, and to remind those of us out there that do have them that these are quite viable and still entertaining today. So here we go. Alright, we got the Ghosts of the Southern Anduin, another one of the ready-to-run fantasy role-playing adventures from Middle-earth, otherwise known as MERP, from the creators of Rolemaster Iron Crown Enterprises. So it is a module. And it says here, Bar-en-Tinnen is a sleepy little town on the banks of the mighty Anduin River. It's one of these little sleepy towns here. Now the complacent inhabitants must keep their eyes open. A ghost haunts the river on foggy nights. The wise bar their doors at sundown. Can you unlock the mystery of the ghost of the river? And then there's the haunted riverfront. It's not the most terrifying of recent events. A young lad, panic-stricken, dripping wet, shivering, collapses on the doorstep. The finned worms fire in. A broken arrow shaft protruding from his left arm. Will you help him defeat his enemies in The Survivor? The tailor's son disappears after encountering the river ghost and telling the story far and wide. Will you face the darkest evil to search for the young man in the Anduin in Athador? And despite plenty of rainfall, the trees and crops are withering. A supernatural blight has struck the land. Are you resourceful enough to combat the shadow on the banks? Confront bandits, undead, evil priests, minions of Sauron as you hunt the ghosts of the Southern Anduin in these 4 exciting adventures. Yay! Right? Now, some good stuff. I mean, and a little conversion. These are good use in any fantasy setting environment, to be honest. A lot of the maps and towns and things like that I've used as impromptu when I've had playing groups go somewhere and I need to pull up something and I don't want to spend a lot of time crafting something from scratch. As always, I always point out that Iron Crown Enterprises has been very decent about including a section on how to convert. So if you don't want to use the MERP core book rule set, you could use Dungeons and Dragons, and you could use the D20 system. It's an easy to convert from their D100 to a D20, or using D6s or D12s. There you have it, right? Okay. Let's see. Ghost on the River. Mighty Anduin is the longest river in Middle-earth, flows the Grey Mountains. Small town of Bar-en-Tinnen lies in Har-Ithien, 60 miles downstream from the City of the Sun, i.e. Minas Tirith. Sometimes serves as a stop for traveling merchant vessels. The settlement sits on the junction of the rivers Tinnen and Anduin. Many of the stories the Anduin rise from small villagers alongside the river, and Bar-en-Tinnen is no exception. Tales of the phantoms and great beasts lurking in the depths delighted the folk for centuries. The town is the center of all activity for this adventure and for the 3 following, so for the 4 adventures. The Floating Haunt. NPCs, Forhel the Tailor, Reinhard Minion of Mortar, Ebithan the Spy, Idazara the Speaker. So for as long as you're one evening, Forhel, the local tailor, had trouble sleeping. He decides to take a midnight walk along the edge of the river. When he comes to the water, a cool mist is rising from the air, shrouded the banks with an eerie fog. During a lengthy stroll, Forhel saw an unearthly glow in the fog. He approaches closer and sees two figures shrouded in black drifting across the water's surface. They disappear into the fog, but the herald did not sleep that night, and the town has been talking constantly about the ghost on the Anduin ever since. In a week of gossip, many versions of the ghost story have developed, and attitudes range from concern to fear to apathy. Some of the elders label Fairhill's story as childish nonsense and recommend the townsfolk ignore its fear-spreading lies, as the tale has been known to exaggerate. Still, many people talk about the phantoms on the river, although more and more are beginning to dismiss Fairhill's story as just that. The ghost is actually a man named Rainer, a disguised craftsman, a spy for the necromancer Goldur. Rainer is sent to act as a ferryman for minions of Mordor. He has been working in Bar-en-Tinnen for several months, and was only observed as the ghost by Fairhill last week. Rainer lives outside of town in a small college. He is known as a skilled fletcher and a bowyer. On the night that Fairhill spotted Rainer, he was giving passage to Anduin, a mage loyal to the Dark Lord. Fairhill has no doubts concerning the truth of the story and is desperate to prove he is right to the town elders. He is ready to ask the merchants and travelers in town to aid him to find the ghost in the river. So, perhaps that's how your party gets involved. Your party gets hired by this fellow, or convinced by this fellow, or perhaps it's their position to figure out what's going on, because, hey, undead's undead and it's not healthy. So we got our basic information of various NPCs, good and bad, that are present in town. We got a nice little map of the town and all of its prime locations. And like I said, I enjoy these things because I use them in other games and other campaigns on occasion. Here's Rainer's cottage, a little information on his cottage, the terrain map around the outside of his house, which you'd think it'd be, yeah, there's the river, never mind, it's close to the river. The task, the objective will unfold gradually as the player characters delve further into the story, discover the identity of the ghost on the river, and, if malevolent, dispose of it. Those who are willing to aid in settling the mystery of a river ghost should be prepared for the challenge that Rainer and possibly Ivarthon presents, the other bad guy or the other bad person in the she's waiting for passage across the river. Starting the players, aids, obstacles, rewards. Townsfolk, wildlife, the bad guys, bad lady, bad guy, bad lady. Game Master's notes. Rainer is aware the opponent ever carefully calculates his moves before he performs them. The ferryman's will, given time, set several of his traps for attacking the player characters. He will normally spread them out roughly 20 feet apart in the Rye riverbed areas. Rainer will then camouflage himself and hide in the natural area within the riverbed. Acting as a sniper, he will shoot at his foes and then carefully sneak to another position. This tactic may also have the NPCs believing that they have more than one or two assailants. Bar-en-Tinnen, on the other hand, will attempt to flank the player characters. After a Rainer's attack, she will single out a player and ambush him or her. If outnumbered or put in a position that will directly threaten her own life, she will flee on foot. The Survivor, the next adventure. The lower Anduin Valley is home to a great many people, and indicated by numerous villages, towns, and cities on the banks. The Great River is the center of life in southeastern Gondor, for it serves as a source of water, food, travel, and commerce. The greatest trade routes in all of Endor. The Anduin allows easy passage of goods from cities and towns. To the people of Bar-en-Tinnen, the mighty waterway is especially important. Without it, the small sleepy town would not exist. There are locals, however, who endanger the village future by preying on unwary predators on the river. These bandits will constantly look for profit. Basically a bandit encounter, right? And a foggy night. Merchant vessel known as the Amalus had left the port of Harlon. She was a sail for Peleager to deliver cloth, food, and some weapons from Minas Tirith, the large port city. Captain was ordered a quick departure afternoon. Foggy night. NPCs, Peregrine the Survivor, only survivor from the ship, Peregrine the bandit leader. The task basically is to find the bandits in their stronghold. Get rid of them. Pretty straightforward. Not a lot of information there. Not a lot of information needed. The next one is Edain and Arthador, or Arthador, however you want to pronounce it. Taylor's missing son. The Dark Lord and the Geisner Commander seek to reestablish his hold at Har-Ithian. It's that strip of land that's west of Mordor, there between the river and the Mordor and the Black Mountains, or whatever the heck they're called. Edain and Arthur is a small part of the Dark Lord's work. That gives a presence that has gone unnoticed. Its memberships have grown. However, in recent weeks, the secrecy has been threatened by overly curious Furhill. See section 3.21. The cult feels at risk of exposure and determined that the bard must be silenced. 4 days ago, Furhill traveled into his town to visit his friends on their farm, intended to stay overnight, did not return the next day. Nan, Ham, Furhill's father is very concerned about the well-being of his son. He obtained a ride to the grain wagon to visit the farm, check the youth. Furhill had arrived safely, spent the night and most of the day there, and departed late afternoon. Where his father followed the path the young man took back towards Bar-en-Tinnen, 1 mile southeast of town. The town walls. He found Furhill's backpack tossed in the bushes aside. Furhill's no longer a boy and is well able to take care of himself. Undoubtedly, he's merely intent on giving you a scare. Somebody will be back in a few days. Knowing his son's dutiful attitude, Nahum is appalled by this response. Enter the NPCs. So, here's the information on the cult, the temple, the interior of the temple, your basic task. Since Nano's plea of help was ignored by the white speakers, he will look for strangers for help. In this continuation of the first adventure, Nahum approaches the PCs, asks them to aid him. Furhill has been taken by the Edain, this cult, and is being held prisoner. Although none of them possess knowledge, the task first find a Furhill, then to rescue him from the captors. Additionally, the PCs, should they discover the speaker, Tarndok should be a member of the Edain. They may speak to expose him to the rest of the speakers and have him expelled from the town. And obstacles, rewards, encounters, game master notes. There's a nice color of Yahoo you want to get rid of. The outer area around Bar-en-Tinnen. Hidden temple up here. Then we get adventure, the third adventure. The Tale of the Black-Fisted Monk. Long ago, amidst the deceptions and military conquests that characterized the Second Age, far from humble monks served the Dark Lord by sowing death in the form of a disease among all the Alvar and Kelvar. Selgar the Black-Fisted was his name, for he wore a leather gauntlet on his right hand only. When he cursed a tree when he cursed a tree or a grapevine or a man, the monk clenched the fingers of his leather-sheathed hand in a fist and directed it elbow locked towards the victim. Blight, fever, blisters, and many other ills struck from Kelgar's extended arm. Unremembered in the histories, the monk played a minor but necessary role in Sauron's bid to rule Middle-earth. Like the Balrog of Moria, Selgar fled with the downfall of his masters. So you gotta figure out what's going on with this one. Capture the guy that's got the gauntlet. I think he's possessed. Evrim's manner, and so on and so forth. Rewards, obstacles. You notice that there's never a lot of really valuable rewards. This one has got to be some gold pieces. Counters, Selgar. Since his imprisonment, Selgar has been gripped by an ever-growing hatred, his ire of overwhelming so much that it may be affecting his better judgment. Townsfolk, various NPCs and other members, council friends, game master notes, the millworkers, counter table, NPC tables. There you have it. Nice little ready-to-run module for MERP and any other game system that you may or may not come across that serves you well.